What up, folks? What it do? Welcome to another episode of the Best Advice Ever podcast. Yes, it's season 3, people. Season 3. Uno, dos, cuatro. No, I don't think it's cuatro. Uno, dos, tres. I jumped straight to 4. I was trying to get trace in my head, but it wasn't coming. Uno, dos, tres. Season tres. Season 3. Everybody, let's clap that up. Clap it up. I feel like we need welcome back from Mace. Welcome back. Welcome back. Welcome back. I took a break. Your boy was weary. Weary and well doing, right? And I took a little break, took a little breath, decompressed, got some stuff done. And I'm back, man. We're going to go forward. We're going to run until we can't run any longer. But I'm going to do some things a little bit different. Hope we can have a little bit more fun and I can provide you with a podcast worthy of your listen and your download. Well, let's get it started. This is the Best Advice Ever podcast. I'm comedian Mike Goodwin, a refreshingly funny comedian, keynote speaker, and content delivery coach. And this is what I have created over the last 3 seasons. This is 3 seasons of providing the listener, you, with some of the best advice that I've heard. Well, that is the focus of this podcast. I'll give you some great advice, but we also going to get some jokes. You're going to get some jokes. You're going to get some philosophy. You're going to get some insights from the mind of Mike Goodwin, the bow tie, Mike Bowtie Goodwin. And I got some parenting advice. I got some marriage advice. I got some entrepreneurial advice. I'm just out here trying to make a positive contribution to society. Well, this episode and the next 4 episodes, the best advice ever is not coming from me. It's coming from a coach. Now, if you don't know me, I'm a huge basketball fan. I probably would say basketball is my favorite sport. Yeah, without a doubt. And especially college basketball. I especially like college basketball, men's college basketball, when my team is performing well. When my team's not performing well, I like it. I watch it. I enjoy it. But the enjoyment level goes down a bit. Like, I couldn't tell you right now, as we are in March, who are the top 5 teams in the men's bracket, right? I could tell you Duke's doing well, and that's about all I got. I think Duke's up there. Well, no, I'm not lying. I'm lying. I think Duke's up there. I think Auburn's up there. I think Tennessee's up there. But because those teams are in the SEC, I just happen to see Duke destroy Wake Forest recently. So I give you Duke. I give you Auburn, Tennessee, Florida, maybe. Like I'm out of gas, right? The reason is because my team has been sucking it out, stanking up the joint, man. I think we have won 2 games in the conference, going from a year ago where we were vying for a number 1 spot. But I kind of saw it coming. I'm not surprised, and I'm very optimistic about next year's team. But I'm not talking about my coach. I'm talking about Coach Buzz Williams from the Texas A&M Aggies. Enjoy basketball. I enjoy some coaches. I enjoy Buzz Williams. Buzz Williams is sharp. He's one of the few coaches that still wears the suit and tie on the sideline. And recently, Coach, and when Missouri and Texas A&M played, in his post game, Coach Buzz Williams provided some of the best advice He offered four pieces of advice for things that he wished someone would have told him. And when I heard that, I was like, ooh, I'm going to use those as the first 4 weeks as we return to the podcast. So at this moment, I'm going to turn it over to Coach Buzz Williams, and he's going to tell you what the best advice ever is today.
Read more than you think you should.
All right, you just heard Coach Williams, Buzz Williams. I got a joke where I talk about nicknames. We call this man Buzz. I don't know this man's first name. He's been Coach Buzz Williams his entire life. I bet you has Buzz on his business card. Buzz is also on the lower halves when he speaks. His name could be Clarence, but we don't know him as Clarence. We know him as Buzz Williams. But Buzz Williams provided us with the best advice ever today. And he said in his comments that this is some advice that he wished someone would have told me. And the first one, and I reiterate, read more than you think you should. Now, he didn't elaborate, so I will elaborate. Read more than you think you should. That really resonated with me when I first heard him do his press conference, because I'm an avid reader. I'm always reading, and I don't often always finish what I'm reading. And I always sometimes restrict myself from reading because what I haven't read. Like, so there may be something else I want to get into, but I'm like, oh, you hadn't finished that. And I kind of treat it like food, right? When you're a kid, you can't have your dessert until you eat your vegetables. And that's how, man, I really want to read that book, but I hadn't eaten my vegetables. And I don't think that mindset serves us. Got a buddy of mine who listens to the podcast, and I talk about Audible books. And for whatever reason, my buddy, in his mindset, reading a book and listening to the book is not the same thing. It's not. It's like cheating. Man, it's wild the way that we learn. It's wild. It's like we didn't learn that, hey, man, there's multiple modes of learning. Some people are visual. Some people, they need their hands-on experiences. Some people are more experiential. But when we grew up, it was very dictatorship, very lecture focused. You had to go do book reports. You read this book, you do a introduction, the body, the conclusion. You don't have creativity. You don't have outside of the box thinking. So my buddy, he didn't think reading books. He didn't think listening to books is the same thing as reading a book, which just blows my mind. It blows my mind. And I think it's more important stuff for us to try to figure out, whether or not reading a book, sitting there with the physical book in your hand, is that the same as reading a digital book? Is that the same as reading Braille? If somebody listen to an Audible and they don't get the same experience as if they had to read it by Braille. So my buddy doesn't believe that listening to books is reading. I believe that listening to books is reading books is reading. All the things is however you can get content inside it. And one of the biggest confusing parts about that for me with the Audible stuff, I used to listen to books on NPR. NPR had a segment where a dude would read the book to you. And I used to listen to that regularly. I listened to a number of books and knew what the book was about because this dude with a great reading voice would get up on NPR and read this book. I didn't feel like I was cheating. I just felt like, oh man, somebody else reading a book that I'm interested in. But I got distracted. Buzz says, read more than you think you should. I'm a big proponent of having a book with me in life. When you get your car keys, you get your jacket, grab a book. Because you never know when you will be just sitting somewhere with some free time. I have kids. I took my son the other day to some basketball training. I grabbed a book. I take my son to get his hair cut at the barbershop. We don't go to the same barbershop. He has a different barber. I take my book. I take my magazines. And sometimes I don't even get to read them, but I have them available. So read more than you think you should. Read, man. Reading is so fundamental to good thinking. And this is what I often have to tell myself. If I'm just walking around with the thoughts that are in my head, I'm very limited. Because I think some good thoughts and then I think some very trash thoughts. And typically, if somebody's taking the time to put thoughts inside of a book, they're really good thoughts. Now, I'm not talking about, now there's some trash books. I'm not saying that all books are created equal. But the books that I'm typically reading are, someone has suggested that I read it. It's been talked about widely, so it's on some type of New York bestseller list. It's on some curriculum that a professor has for a course. It's been noted on an interview that I read, or it was mentioned in another book that I was reading. So I'm not just reading random books. I'm reading books that have been vouched for. You know, when you join a fraternity, a lot of people they like to know who have seen you, who can vouch for you, who came and saw you when you were pledging. So the books that I get, they've pledged. They're paper, but they're paper because they're books. That's a pledging joke. But they've been vouched for. These are good books. These are books that have been widely circulated. So read and get more good ideas inside of your head. So if you got good ideas already, imagine if you read, man, every time I read something, especially that I'm interested in, I get better ideas. It's like steroids for my thinking. And I think that's similar to what Coach is talking about here. Read more than you think you should, because I don't know if you're like me, but there are times where I could be reading, but I'm like, I didn't eat my vegetables. I can't have an ice cream sandwich. Like, hey, man, read that article if you're interested in an article. Read that chapter from that book. Like, you're not going to get penalized because you didn't read the entire book cover to cover from the beginning to the end. You didn't read the prologue or the intro. I used to go straight to chapter 1. And now I'm reading everything. I'm reading the publisher, what year. I'm getting this information. And I would encourage you to do the same. The best advice ever is read more than you think you should. And that's courtesy of Coach Buzz Williams. That's the best advice ever. Now, on my podcast, I typically talk about being on the road, and I tell you like where I've been located, where I just came from, what gig, and I'm changing that a bit. I'll tell you the cities where I've been, or if something stood out to me about a city, I'll share the cities as opposed to trying to stay current with, whoa, I just got back from Orlando and I'm on my way to Texas. That becomes a little bit monotonous for me, and I don't know how it is for you. But I want to talk about the places that I have been, and one of the places that I have traveled to most recently is what I call the White Wakanda. Yeah, Nashville, Tennessee. Boy, it's a bunch of white people in Nashville. I'm talking about they coming in by the busloads, man. I mean, Nashville is like the Mecca for white people, man. And I'm telling you, I've been in a lot of spaces with a bunch of white people. Now, and again, I must say this because I don't know, when you talk about race, this is one of the bits I'm doing on stage, and I really haven't figured it all the way out. But I'll just say, hey man, one thing I've noticed when you talk about race, It makes people very uncomfortable. Let's get into it. And then I'll talk about something related to race. Matter of fact, I got a new segment that I'll talk about some of the comedy bits that I'm working on that I haven't quite figured out yet, and maybe you can help me out. But yeah, so when I say white, there's no pejorative term. Like white is like me saying that is red. Like I'm not the white man. Like that's not when I say white. I'm not doing that. The white man, like you don't hear an inflection. White is just, hey, Caucasian just feels a little like, manufactured, right? White, or if I was talking about a black dude, I'd be like black. I don't have any kind of charged language when I say, and that's one thing, and I might have talked about this before, maybe this is a good place to input this. You know, sometimes I'll hear people tell me they don't see color. And it's like, you're lying. You see color. What I think they're saying is I don't attach negative stereotypes to color. So therefore, I don't see color. And the issue is not seeing color. The issue is adding negative stereotypes to the color that you see. So I could say, hey, man, I saw this Asian dude and not have any kind of other thoughts about the guy other than that he's of Asian descent. But if I say white dude, but internally I'm like, the white man, then yeah, we got some problems. You need to figure that out. But I don't have those issues. And so I would not import the issues that I have on the other people. If I think this way, will you think this way? That's not how, no. So when I say white, I'm just looking at the people that are there, and there were a bunch of them. Bunch of white people. Matter of fact, when I knew it was a bunch of white people, it was at breakfast at the hotel. Because, you know, everybody at the hotel, not everybody, but a lot of people come down to get breakfast. I mean, I went down to get that breakfast, man. I felt like I was at the Carolina Cup, and there's a lot of white people at the Cup too. I'm talking about white folks on top of white folks, white people. It was like I've never been, but back in the day, what was the big concert in like the 60s, the 70s? Y'all know what I'm saying. I can't think of it. It's like the hippie. I can't pull it up, man. I've been having those moments here recently. I cannot pull it up. I thought it came, it was coming. Woodstock. Woo! I knew it was in there. It was in there. Woodstock, man. It was like Woodstock in the lobby of the breakfast of the hotel for breakfast. So I was in Nashville, and Nashville was very interesting because I was not for there. One thing that I know about a lot of cities, because people ask me like, hey man, what's your favorite city to travel? And until recently, I really don't spend a lot of time in the actual city. Like I can go to Orlando, but really what I'm doing is flying into the Orlando airport, getting in either a rental car or Uber and going to a hotel that's in Orlando. And then I go and do a event that is in Orlando or may not be in Orlando. It may be outside of Orlando. Then I do that event. I either go and eat somewhere close to there, or I go back to the hotel that's in Orlando, and maybe I get food at the hotel, or I get Uber Eats. Then I get up in the morning, and then I go to the airport that's in Orlando. So I haven't seen Orlando proper. I haven't been able to be amongst the Orlandorians. I haven't been able to be amongst the people and to go to the different areas. Like if you were in Columbia and we're like, oh, did you go to the 5 Points? Did you go to the Vista? Did you go to the district? There's like a new area now that we have. I'm calling it the district. It's over the Bull Street district. Bull Street, if you don't know anything about Columbia, it used to be for the mental institution. So it's funny to me now. It's not funny, but it's ironic that a lot of energy and excitement is around an area that used to be known for housing the mental institution, right? So if I'm telling you about Columbia, I'm talking about Harveston, I'm talking about the Northeast, like there are areas that, oh yeah, man, I went to Harveston and had a great meal over at First Watch. And we went over to the mall. You know, there's features of an area that you're able to discover. I don't typically have those opportunities because I'm flying in the day of and I'm flying out. Well, that wasn't the case in Nashville. The case in Nashville, I had a show on Thursday, so I flew in on that Thursday. But then I was in Murfreesboro on Friday, and I wasn't flying back out to Saturday. So I was able to kind of hang out a little bit in Nashville, and where I was located was not that far from Broadway. And I've been to Broadway before after a comedy show, but it's dark. There's a bunch of people. You can't really see what's happening. I went out there first thing in the morning because I'm an older dude. I'm not young. I'm turning 50 this year, people. So I got some old school tendencies, which Friday morning when I was in my room, I realized I didn't have any workout shorts. So I was like, oh, I need to go get some shorts. Now, once I park my car, this is me, especially in a city like Nashville, I'm not really trying to get to park it. Like if I got to valet the car, if I can walk somewhere, I'm good. Like if I can valet my car and not get my car again to Saturday morning, that's preferable for me. So if there are restaurants that are close by that I can walk to, shopping centers, things I can now, you know, and that wasn't the case in terms of my work. I had to get in the car to go to the comedy club. I had to get in the car to go to Murfreesboro. But like during the day, I want to just walk over the places. Or I want somebody that I know in the city to come pick me up, man. I don't want to be out driving around, pissing people off in traffic because I don't know where I'm going. I'm following the GPS, but I don't know where I'm going. So I would rather valet my car and see it on Saturday morning when it's time to go to the airport. And I noticed that there was a Nike store not too far from my hotel room. So I was like, man, I can go get these shorts. I can see a little bit of the city. I can maybe even get some lunch. Like, but I left early enough. I wasn't even thinking about lunch. I went to the Nike store. Like, let's say I left my room, the hotel at 9:30. Maybe even closer to 10. It might have been closer to 10. I was like, I'm just going to run over there, get some shorts, come on back. I think I had a pretty good workout facility at the hotel. I was going to get a workout in. Man, I get to the Nike store. That joint don't open till 11 a.m. I'm like, this is a hangover city. Who's opening at 11? And it was Friday morning. But in that Broadway area, man, them folks don't be stirring not even a mouse until like 11 o'clock because they was probably there till 5, 6 o'clock in the morning. And when I was walking around, like bands were playing, like that's Music City for real, because folks they're coming there to, you know, launch their career, to get some success, right, for, you know, bands and music, get in the music game, the music industry. But they're literally like bars that have live music at 10 o'clock, 11 o'clock in the morning. So people are like charging covers. First thing in the morning, I'm like, hey, man, the Nike store not even open. How you going to ask me to come into your bar and listen to some honky tonk, man? So that's Nashville. Also didn't realize that Nashville's, a.k.a. Smashville, their hockey team, the Predators, which I tried to tell some jokes about, they don't really go well. Pedophile jokes don't really go that well. Predators, to catch a predator. There's just so much material there, but when I started talking about it, like I had this joke I was trying to do about the Predators, like, man, what does kids' night for the Nashville Predators look like, man? No love, people. You got no love. One thing I did see in Nashville, there's the African American Music Museum. I did enjoy that. Museums are like, you know, especially the African Americans. I went to the National African American Museum in D.C. There's one in Charleston. It's one of those things that, man, you got to make multiple trips. It's a lot to take in, especially music, man. They had a lot of, you can make beats and a lot of exhibits, a lot of songs that you can listen to, you make your own playlist. So I highly recommend going to the African American Music Museum whenever you're in White Wakanda, Nashville. All right, this is a new segment I want to try out too. So there are jokes that I'm trying, new jokes, but they're not working all the way. So one of them, and again, I would love, you can email me, you can send me a message on social media, or you can just not say anything and just listen to me every week as I come back and give you an update. So I'm writing this new joke, and it was kind of in line with Black History Month, but I think it needs to be broader. So here's the joke right here. Here's the joke currently. And it may be even in the future, we'll drop the joke in from like an open mic. So I'll get like the audio from the open mic and I'll just play the joke and then I'll talk about it. But I didn't do that this time. So I'll just talk about the joke. So this joke kind of was around Black History Month. And I basically got up and said, and I'm doing this at Mike's. I haven't done this at a real show. I think I might have done it at a show, but there's a part of my new show where I'm telling folks, hey, I got some jokes that I don't really know if they work. Would y'all be interested in hearing? So I threw that out one time. I think I was at Alpharetta when I did this particular joke. So the joke that I have, I talk about, man, give it up Black History Month. So people clap. But now we're in March, so we can't do Black History Month anymore. So I might need to rework this joke. And I said, give it up Black History Month. The cool thing about Black History Month is you get more offerings on television. Like white people, we don't get any more money. We don't get a stipend. There's no Black History Month check that comes. Really, the only thing you get is a little bit more programming on television. I just happened to see this documentary recently from this Black icon, Franklin Armstrong. So I say Franklin Armstrong. Nobody really knows who Franklin is. Some of y'all might think that's Louis Armstrong's little brother, but it's not. Franklin Armstrong is the Black character on the cartoon, The Peanuts. So I might get a little chuckle there. So I started talking about Franklin. Now, again, I don't really have a joke right now. I saw it. It's on Apple TV. There's a Welcome Home. Franklin is a 45-minute cartoon about Franklin Armstrong, who's the little black kid with Charlie Brown. And that's all I really got. And I do say a joke. I say something like, it's wild, man. Like those shows back in the day, they try to entertain you, but they try to educate you too. There's a little scene with Charlie and Franklin are talking, and Charlie Brown asked Franklin, is he like baseball? And Franklin's like, yeah, I like baseball. I come from a long line of baseball players. As a matter of fact, my great uncle played in the Negro Leagues. Charlie Brown was like, what's the Negro Leagues? And I'm like, come on, Charlie Brown. You can do some deductive reasoning. The Negro Leagues. You don't see black dudes in the major leagues at this point, which they probably were, but it's 68 when Franklin shows up. So when Charlie Brown's like, what's the Negro Leagues? And it's like, black people playing baseball, Charlie. That's what I think that's funny, but it's undeveloped. There needs to be some more of that. So I say, come on, Charlie Brown, it's not that hard to figure out. Negro Leagues, black people playing baseball. And then the next thing I say is, then Charlie Brown asks Franklin what kind of music he likes. And then Franklin goes off on this long kind of like Little Richard, Stevie Wonder. He says John Coltrane, right? And they're kind of hanging out in the garage. He says John Coltrane, and then Franklin just whips out a Coltrane album and starts playing it. And I'm like, hey man, it's an 8-year-old kid. What does he know about John Coltrane? I ain't learned about Coltrane. I was in college. So that's pretty much all I got, man. So what I am thinking about doing is I might use Franklin as like, hey man, there's some people that don't get the credit that they deserve. And I may talk about like Joe Dumars played basketball for the Detroit Pistons. He was known as the Jordan Stopper. So I may talk about like an obscure basketball player who in this generation, most people would not know who they were, whether that's like I said, Joe Dumars or Adrian Dantley, guys like that who were the guy in their day, but as time's going on, they're kind of forgotten about. So it may be some opportunity to talk about Franklin Armstrong in that regard. So that's one of the jokes I'm working on. Another joke, it goes along with that same kind of I'll set it up like I did the Nashville joke. I'll say, man, one thing I've noticed when you talk about race makes people very uncomfortable. Let's get into it. And then this is why I say white people, you got to stop. You got to stop with the naked and afraid. You got to stop going. You got to stop auditioning. What are y'all doing? Why? Who are these people? And why are they going on this show? What is the allure? And some of these people are married, right? You know how bad you got to hate your family to be gone for 21 days in the Sahara Desert, naked, and your son got a baseball game that you're not attending. So I think there's some legs there with naked and afraid. So Armstrong and naked and afraid, those are two bits that I'm working on. And again, I would love any feedback that you have to offer. And last but not least, I'm kind of in the chronicles of Fit Mike versus Fluffy Mike. If you're following me on Instagram, I'm about to evict Fluffy Mike. I've been Fluffy Mike since the end of definitely since the end of 2024. And I'll talk a little bit more in depth about some of this stuff because I think I could not help, but I'll give you my perspective of kind of my challenge as it relates to weight and eating and nutrition and fitness and health. But I'm down about 10 pounds since the beginning of 2025. One of my goals is for my stomach to not be bigger than my waist. That's a goal. But I think ideally I would love to be up under 220. If I could float somewhere between 215 to 218, I think that would be ideal. And to maintain, because I'm the king of losing. I'll lose it, and then I'll get it all back and some. So I'll talk a little bit more about the chronicles of Fluffy Mike and Fit Mike. But one thing I will share that I've figured out most recently is that I just need to eat boring. And that really wasn't something that I was doing because I was of the entitled generation as it related to food, especially on the road. Like at home, I eat pretty clean and I'm pretty consistent and disciplined. Man, but I get on that road, I started to kind of use food as a reward versus fuel. So I'm on the road. I typically won't have meals. Like, I'll get up at 5 something in the morning, catch a flight, it might get some sun chips on the flight. Sometimes I'm able to go to like a Delta Lounge and maybe get some breakfast. You get like a hard boiled egg and some toast or something, nothing major. And then I'll get to the city where I'm supposed to be. Oftentimes, if I'm driving myself, I'm able to go right to the hotel and I'll skip lunch or I'll get, some fruit or something. But if somebody's hosting me, they want to take me to the greasiest spoon. And now I'm eating a giant burrito that's 2,000 calories in one sitting. So, and then after I do my show and I travel, I have a great set. Like I want to, at the end of the night, get a very tasty, sultry meal, something that is gonna like really appease my appetite, right? And I figured out, like, bro, I just need to eat boring, man. I'm just gonna give me some salmon and some broccoli, bro. Because I've had enough exciting meals. They're still on my stomach. My stomach is full of exciting meals. I have the receipts, and I don't want the receipts anymore. I don't want the results. So I have to go boring. And I know other people will be like, oh, don't do that to yourself. Life's too short. Hey, man, I'm more interested in the results than tasty food right now. And not that I don't have taste food or I can't get tasty food. I need to keep it simple. I need to keep it real basic. For me to extinguish Fluffy Mike, I got to keep it very basic. And especially on that road, man, because again, I just had this experience. I did this show Friday night. I got back to that hotel and I was like, man, I need to get something to eat. Because I'd eaten early in the day and I was like, let me get some meat. I got on that Uber Eats. I went to Chili's. I'm looking at their menu and I was going to get some type of hamburger jalapeno pepper quesadilla. And I didn't have a clue of how many calories that thing was. But I was going to scarf it down and feel great and wake up in the morning in my third trimester. And I was like, nah, we ain't doing this no more, man. We going to get some salmon, some broccoli, and some rice. It was very boring because when they bring you food, healthy food, quote unquote healthy food, oh, they put no love. There was no love. But it was, I ate it, and it was what I needed, and I went to bed. One of the things I'll be doing moving forward, especially on that road, is eating boring food, baby. Getting boring food will get me back to fit Mike as opposed to fluffy Mike. Thank y'all so much for tuning in. Also, man, at the end of April, not the end of April, April 11th and 12th, I'll be doing an intensive. It's a 2-day workshop. We're still working on the name of it, but basically I'm going to be teaching folks how to infuse humor into their presentation. So if you know professional speakers, if you know people that make a living speaking and want to learn from an expert on how to bring some humor into your content, y'all can hit me at info@comedianmikegoodwin.com for some more information. Again, thank you for listening. We're back, baby. I'm coming back every week with a new podcast episode. We're going to drop them. We're going to drop them like that hot. So thank you so much for tuning in. Check me out on all the social media stuff. Go to MikeGoodwin.com. You can get to my social media. You can get to my schedule. You can get to my booking. Make sure that you like, subscribe, forward, man. Let folks know if this podcast is something that you enjoy listening to. And I'll see you next week. Same back channel, same back place. Could have been anywhere in the world, but chill with me, and I appreciate it. See you next time. Peace.